everybody, I'm Haley Harper, and today we're at the University of Guelph's Arboretum to talk about an important fungus that is impacting North American forests today. White pine blister rust is one of the most economically significant diseases that is impacting the forestry industry. It has resulted in millions of dollars in losses and has managed to eliminate a large portion of white pines across North America. White pines were formerly a premium timber in the industry. However, as a result of white pine blister rust, entire forest ecosystems have been altered. Species such as western hemlock and grand fir have taken over what was once dominated by white pines. White pines were unable to regenerate as seedlings are highly susceptible to the disease, and forest fire restrictions result in unfavorable environmental conditions for recolonization. As a result, the timber industry has shifted towards producing other tree species. White pine blister rust is caused by a pathogen called Cronartium ribicola. All 5 needled pine species are susceptible. White pine is the most susceptible, and this includes eastern white pine, western white pine, sugar pine, and limber pine. Younger trees and lower branches are the main points of infection. It is native to Asia and was brought over to North America from Europe in the early 1900s and was only discovered in Ontario in 1914. The pathogen is heteroecious, which means it requires 2 hosts to complete its life cycle and 5 spore stages. The alternate hosts for this disease are members of the ribes family, which includes currants and gooseberries. Let's go take a look at a tree, a white pine tree that has been impacted by white pine blister rust. It is simple to identify this tree as a white pine as the needles are grouped into 5 and they're soft, not prickly, and they're light green in color. The bark is a gray color. In young trees it's a smooth bark, but in older trees it has fissures and is darker in color. You can tell that this tree has white pine blister rust from the distinctive symptoms. Symptoms include red and yellow spots on the pine needles and eventual cankers developing on branches or the trunk with a distinctive orange line around the canker where spores are produced. There's heavy resin flow that comes from the canker and eventually girdles the tree. You can see on this tree here the extensive resin flow that is coming from where there were once cankerous branches that they have cut off. At this point, where there are cankers, usually the needles are red in color and are grouped together, and this is called flagging. Depending on the location of the canker on the tree determines how long the tree is able to survive with the disease. For example, if the canker occurs on the lower parts of the trunk, the tree cannot survive very long as the upper portion of the tree dies from girdling. However, if the cankers occur on branches or on the higher parts of the trunk, it is able to survive with the disease for many years. However, it is weakened and susceptible to other pests like bark beetles or other pathogens like armillaria. There are many environments that encourage the success of this pathogen. Cool, moist environments favor this disease, and infection typically occurs in late summer and early fall. Many controls have been researched to help. Many control methods have been researched to help control this disease. For example, in the early stages of invasion, there were many ribes eradication programs where they tried to eliminate the alternate host. They were largely unsuccessful because spores are able to travel far distances via wind, and it was very labor intensive and costly. So people moved to fungicides, and they attempted to use those to control and maintain the disease. However, they were largely unresearched and not well understood, and many of them, they were never effective enough to be economically feasible as a control. Over the years, however, effective cultural controls have managed to help with the spread. For example, there are buffer zones where if you own a nursery, you do not plant ribes anywhere within this buffer zone around your nursery. Also, rust hazard zones were created. These are areas where the disease is highly favored in these areas. For example, down slopes or depressions in landscapes where cool air can settle and the disease can become very successful in these areas. Knowing where the rust hazard zones are in your area, if you are planning to plant a pine tree, is important. However, the most effective control there is pruning. As you can see on this tree, in the Arboretum, they have used pruning to control this disease. It was likely that branches had cankers and they then cut them off to avoid the spread to the trunk. Host resistance is another control that has played a huge role in helping to combat white pine blister rust. Host resistance, or gene resistance, in the United States has been identified and isolated in 4 of the 9 susceptible species present. However, it wasn't until this year that Siniesco et al. Discovered a major gene resistance in the northernmost populations in Canada, in the Rockies. This discovery is significant for Canada as it offers potential to restore pine species populations in our forests. Also, as climate change is allowing for warmer temperatures and the spread of white pine blister rust to travel further north, this discovery of gene resistance can help combat the predicted spread of the disease in the future. Thank you for joining me today at the Arboretum, and stay tuned for next week's episode.